All right, welcome to Wednesday night team call. We have Crush Nation crew joining us as well. We are going to do recognition after because we have a guest speaker tonight and I want to value her time. I'm so excited that Kayla is here. I started following Kayla a couple years ago when I was like, my warm market up and I was really struggling to invite and just struggling in the business. And I found her tips so incredible. Like it was like when I started following her every single day, I was like, yes, 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 yes. And so we connected, we've done a one-on-one, I've done one of her free courses. And even if I stop watching for a little bit, I know every single time when I loop back, I grab a little piece of value. So I'm really excited that she's here with us tonight. She's going to talk to us about inviting and objections. I also wanted to mention that Kayla is hosting an event before Summit that I'm sure she'll tell us about. But if you're there early, check that out. And yeah, welcome, Kayla. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pass it over to you.
What's up, guys? How's everyone doing? Love seeing so many familiar faces and, of course, new faces. I think I just need screen share permission, Courtney. I don't know if you make me co-host or however that works. I've been talking a lot today, so if my voice sounds a little off, that's why. But I also just watched a really funny TikTok video and I'm feeling slap happy. So that's either a good thing or I should be apologizing in advance. It's one of those two. I'm just in a really good mood. But we're talking about 3 really awesome topics today, kicking off with a little bit of psychology behind why people buy, of course, overcoming objections. And then I'm also really excited to share what I like to call my 3 strike system for follow-ups. It sounds really aggressive and abrasive, but it's not. And I can't think of a better name for it. So we're just rolling with it. So those are the 3 things we're talking about today. Super duper jazzed. If you have questions, we'll do them at the end. And if you don't want to lose a thought, you can also leave it in the chat, but I'm going to try not to look because I'm easily distracted. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm just squirrely. So because I have a lot of new faces, just a little quick blurb about me. I've been in the network marketing space since I was in college back in 2011. And now I get to help network marketers modernize businesses in a way that feels good, right? With real good business strategy, but also showing up in a way that just makes you excited to share the business opportunity and share products with the right people. Because I strongly believe that when you get in front of the right people who are ready for this business, ready for this opportunity, and ready for the products, you have a growing, thriving organization that grows along with you. And so here's my Instagram. If we're new and you want to hang out, I'm even funnier over on Instagram. But also, I also like to kind of show a little bit about why you should listen to me, right? Does she actually know what she's talking about? In 3 years, I've generated over 7 figures of revenue without having to sacrifice my integrity with how I show up. I get to be goofy and ridiculous and talk about Vampire Diaries all day. And I just love being in a business, right? Where I get to share who I am and what I love. And you get to do the same, right? People join you because of exactly who you are, right? Without sleazy sales tactics, without cold messaging. And I get to teach others how to do the exact same thing, which is super fun. So let's go ahead and jump in because I'm starting with a little bit of psychology behind why people buy, because nobody talks about this. And this is super juicy. And people pay a lot of money to go to graduate school to learn a principle just like this. Because when you understand why people buy, it allows you to show up effectively, right? We all have a certain number of hours in the day that we're working on our business, and it can either be effective or ineffective. And I'm sure we can all agree that no matter how much time you have to work on your business, you want it to be effective. And how do we measure something as being effective, right? It's that the person on the other end is so excited to grab their purse or their wallet, right? Pull out their card and make an empowered purchasing decision with you. An empowered purchasing decision equals longevity and, of course, retention within your organization. And I'm sure we can all agree as well that that is something that we want and that we strive for, right? Because churn rate, don't have time for that. There are a few principles. I'm going to give you one because I want to give you a ton of gold nuggets on good topics today. But one of the biggest reasons, right, the dreams and desires kind of principle behind why people buy is that people will work harder to avoid a loss than they will to achieve a gain. So essentially what that means, right? And I'm sure we can pinpoint where this has come up in our own lives, right? A perfect example, when you're shopping and you have to spend $50 more to save $6 on shipping. It's like, are we nuts? Are we really that nuts? Yes, we are, because we're human, right? We'll work harder to avoid a loss of $5 than we will to gain $50. So when you are focusing, right, on the right things, when you talk about the business and when you are actually inviting and selling someone, when you focus on the right thing versus the wrong thing, that can be the exact reason why people are actually getting up and off of the fence, right? And how do we end up doing this wrong, right? This shows up a lot when we focus on the features, or what I like to say, what comes in the box, right? The number of servings, how many things you get, how long the access is to bot, et cetera, right? Those aren't the things that get someone off the fence, right? Those are like the sprinkles on top of the ice cream. Does the ice cream still taste as good without the sprinkles? Yes. So why are we spending so much time highlighting the sprinkles? Another principle I like to use to look at this: when you're traveling somewhere to go on vacation, you care about the tropical destination and the beach. You don't care about what snacks they're serving on the plane, right? You're thinking about what's on the other side. When we focus on the right things, the things that matter, matter, and the things that don't. So how do we put this into play, knowing that people are going to actually care about doing the work, right? Because as we know about this industry, it requires work, fortunately and unfortunately, right? They will work harder to avoid a loss. So when you are talking to people, right, about what's going on in their life and their goals, right, this is what most people aren't willing to do. But you're here and you're doing the work. So you're going to do what the top % are doing, right? Here are some examples on how we can communicate with someone based on the principle of avoiding a loss, right? If you don't fix X problem now, what will happen? Instead of, well, tell me about your goals. Oh, why is that goal important, right? Some of those conversations are great, but if you are talking to someone, or maybe you've gone back and forth a couple times and they're just not getting off the fence. Have you been there where it's like they say they want it and their actions aren't supporting their words? Like, what's going on? This is where this comes into play, and this will make such a huge difference for you, right? What will happen if you continue to try to figure out how to lose that final 10 pounds on your own, right? And we get them looking at what's at stake of remaining where they are versus the what comes in the box versus just looking at the destination, right? And examples of this that likely will come up for people, right? Opportunities that haven't been actualized, right? Maybe there's something that they're waiting to do once they get to a certain weight or feel like they're at a certain place of being ready, right? Relationship suffering, right? Especially looking at the business opportunity. I know it can be kind of a touchy subject, but when people are really looking at this opportunity as a way to help out in terms of finances, what's at stake if we don't address the issues with the finances now? If you keep trying to figure it out on your own, digging through the couch cushions for spare change, right? Instead of committing to something you know will work, if you work it, right? What is at stake? And so this is a principle, and this is a tactic that you can absolutely take and have in your tool belt to use, right, with someone who you just know in your heart of hearts is like your person. They're just sitting on the fence, kind of stuck in this place of fear. Because remember, people will work harder to avoid a loss than they necessarily will to achieve a gain. And when you know that, you can effectively use this to help someone get off the fence and make a decision, whether it's to work with you or not, right? Because that's what we want. When people stay on the fence, that helps nobody. No one knows what's going on. They don't know. You don't know. We want a yes or a no. And so this is going to be a principle that's going to absolutely change the game for you. We're switching gears, a little bit abrasive of a shift, but I want to make sure that everyone feels good about that before we switch gears. I'll check the chat real quick. So I have someone that's too busy. Yeah, absolutely. So Sally, when we know that we're always going to be busy, right? What's at stake if you don't fix this problem now? I loved calling people out on that. Like, because I say it too. This is such a busy week. I say it every single week. So I call it, right? Call a spade, right? We're always busy. Why do we wear it like a badge of honor? What's actually going on here? What's going to happen if you don't do something about this despite being busy? And so I've asked people that plenty of times, and generally it's with someone who I just have a good feeling that they're ready to be challenged, right? Get a feel for the situation. You're a good judge of character to know if the person's ready for that. Yes, I love it. So we're feeling good. We're switching gears. Love it. Perfect. Closing the chat. So with looking at overcoming objections, this is one of my favorite topics because there are really kind of two ways that we deal with this, right? We have overcoming objections proactively, and we kind of have overcoming objections reactively, right? We can't always catch them before they get through. So in your business, no matter how long you've been in your business, you're going to be dealing with both, right? And I always like to say this, overcoming objections isn't about begging and like really just getting someone, badgering them and getting them to sign up, right? Overcoming objections the right way is empowering that person to get off the fence and decide whether it's a yes or a no. At the end of the day, we're getting off the fence. And I always tell people, whether you're working with me or not, I just want you to be confident in that decision no matter what. And that's my goal as the mentor, is to help you and guide you, right, to get to that place, right? Because all of us can probably admit we've overcome objections the wrong way at one point or another. But when we do it coming from that place of scarcity, or like, I just really need this last point, it's the 29th of the month, I'm about to like lose my shit, right? What ends up happening is it pushes the person on the other end away because they don't feel empowered, right? They don't feel connected to you anymore. Like any sort of relationship, right? Your relationship with a prospect, it is delicate in those early days, right? And so doing the wrong thing can kind of sever that connection, and it makes it really hard to come back from. But when we do it the right way, even if it's not a yes right now, it still maintains that solid relationship that can pay off tenfold. I always tell people this because I think it's really important, because sometimes it's like, yeah, but where's proof of that actually happening? Some of my biggest breaks, if you will, in business have come from people who talked about me to someone else, who put me on a platform or, connected me with so-and-so. And the individuals who made this connection were people who I might have been in a sales conversation with, but they actually didn't buy from me. And I still to this day don't think ever did, right? In two specific situations that has happened. So I always say, maintaining that solid relationship, even if it's not paying you in the short term, I guarantee you will have situations that will pay you tenfold in the long term, right? Facing objections also means that someone likely has questions and needs clarification. I don't know about you, but sometimes talking about, right, the business opportunity or some of our offers is hard, right? Because we're just so excited and there's so much information and we don't always articulate it the best way. A lot of the times objections come up because we didn't do the best job articulating. It doesn't mean that they don't like you or don't like the offer, right? But yes, in some cases, objections are also just a nice way of someone telling you no, and they just don't have the balls to say no, so they kind of jerk you around a little bit. But with these tools, we can uncover the differences, because there's a way, and there are multiple ways actually, that you can tell the difference between an objection that's rooted in fear or a need for clarity versus someone just trying to find a nice way out, or they're just not committed, right? I kind of put both of those types of people in that category, right? If you have an application that they fill out, this is one of my philosophies. If you want to adapt it, go for it. I think it's really effective. If someone's filling out an application and they can't answer questions like in at least one complete sentence, and they're just, I don't think they're committed. And I'm just like, I can already tell we're going to have problems. Red flag number one. I also pay attention to how people answer questions while I'm inviting or while I'm selling, right? Are they forthcoming? Are they giving me really short, curt answers? Or are they willing to actually be open to kind of that uncovery discovery process? Because I tell people, if you're not upfront with me, I can't make an honest and good recommendation that's going to help you. So it's a waste of your time and also a waste of my time, right? So paying attention to that, right? Because that can also help prevent, right, being proactive about objections on the front end. Are they actually excited about that interaction with you, right? If someone seems like not excited, especially if we're like face-to-face or something, I'll call it out. Like, hey, is there something about this that doesn't feel right? Or am I missing something? Because generally, if someone doesn't sound excited, they're probably thinking about something. It's probably about money. Let's just get it out of the way so that we can effectively move forward with the process, right? When you share how you support them, whether it be with the business, with a total solution pack, whatever that is, are they like, yes, I'm jazzed? Do they have an emotional buy-in to the process, right? If they do, there's a much less likelihood of facing objections, even of terms when it comes to money. If they're not super jazzed, then I'm going to ask some follow-up questions like, hey, you seem a little apprehensive. Is there something about this package that you think is missing? Or a question similar to that, right? And then do you have a good feeling about the interaction thus far? Do you feel weird about it, right? Again, if I ever feel anything kind of weird or awkward, I just like to call it out, right? The elephant in the room, let's just address it so we can move forward either with the sales conversation or in a bless and release direction. Especially if you're like, I'm doing this business while I have a career and I have a family, like I don't have time for shenanigans. Using this process really helps. Again, trust your gut. This can help you be proactive with objections, right? And let's say going through those steps, right? You have someone who you're just like, I'm just going to bless and release, not worth it. Power to you. Because I always tell people, when you're in business, whether this happens early in your business or later, nothing is more empowering than turning down money when you know it's not the right person, when you know it's not the right solution for them. Like nothing like made me feel better. In the moment, I wanted to freak out, but I'll never forget getting off that call of just like, yeah, this isn't a good fit. You feel like $1 million. But how do you do it, right? Because when we bless and release the wrong people, that leaves us available to bring in the right people. And I have seen that time and time again myself. I've seen it for my clients. Anytime I've gone against this and I'm like, getting that money would be kind of nice, it bites me in the ass every single time. Never worth it, ever. Learn from me. It's, the tears aren't worth it. It's not, we don't have the time, right? Hey, Sally, I understand that this really isn't the best fit for you. You're looking for X. I'm really delivering Y. I'd love to point you in a better direction that fits your needs. Tell me more about blank, right? Bless and release, send them in another direction. But I always like to tell people, if the person's a little, and you're like, oh, this person's like trying to get free samples. We don't run into that as much now as we used to. Don't send them to anybody else. Just say, oh, I don't know what's going to be a good fit. But if I think of anything, I'll let you know, right? Bless and release, get them out of your sphere. You need to focus on the people that you can actually help. Another way to bless and release, if someone's being a game player, what I like to say is if someone's just jerking you around, their words are not matching their actions, you've already given them a lot of free support, they're wasting a ton of time, call it out. I totally understand that this is not the best time, Jess. I definitely need to focus my time and attention on the people right now who are ready to actually get started today. How about I check in with you at the end of, insert whatever month here, and we'll see if things are different. How does that sound? So if the person who is a not right now person that you just want to bless and release, even to place on the back burner, this script number 2 has become one of my favorites because it's direct, but I don't think it's hurting anyone's feelings. It's honoring your boundaries and just saying, hey. It's oftentimes saying what they're too afraid to say themselves. And then, of course, right, we're being proactive. Let's talk about being reactive because, again, we're all going to run into it. You could be the best business person in the entire world. You're still going to run into this all the time, every day. And Zig Ziglar said it best. Objections that are on the reactive side are simply requests for more information. It doesn't always mean the person dislikes you, dislikes the offer, or that they're trying to find a way to bow out. Also, most objections, especially in the health and wellness sphere, are knee-jerk reactions because sometimes, right, talking about this stuff is so uncomfortable, right? Sometimes, talking about health and weight loss and like even gut health, right, like bodily fluids, it's a little awkward sometimes. So most objections are just knee-jerk reactions. I can't even tell you, and I'm sure we can all admit, how many times have we said, oh, that's too expensive, or like, oh, I don't have the money for it right now, when we very well actually do have the money. It's something else. But our knee-jerk reaction is to just go to something easy, which is oftentimes the easiest cop-out is too expensive, can't afford it, don't have the money, right? Most of the time, it's not actually an affordability issue. But what other ones also pop up? The famous, I need to think about it, in which you often reply, we can probably all say the same thing. Okay, sounds good, let me know. Who could admit that they say that all the time, right? I like to call that the kiss of death. because I guarantee pigs will fly before they let you know, right? Every single time, right? That's too expensive. That's more than I expected. That's more than my budget. That's another one I love to hear as well. And it oftentimes comes from someone that doesn't have a budget. And I've said it too. So I'm also calling myself out, or I have to talk to so-and-so. The most uncomfortable ones, because it's like, you think about it, well, what can I say other than like, cool, let me know, right? But there are things that we can say. I'll tell you some things that you can say, but of course, as I always say, take this as a guide, make it you. You don't talk like me, I don't talk like you. We want it to be accurate. So I need to think about it. Sally, totally respect that. And I think it's really important to take the time and think about an investment like this, because I want you to be confident that it's a heck yes or a heck no. Either way is fine with me. And I'd love to actually help you out with that process. Can you tell me what you need to think about? Most people are like, that's scary, because you're basically challenging them. I need to think about it. Awesome. What do you need to think about? Most of the people that say this, they'll be like, they don't know what they need to think about, right? It's usually something else. Knee-jerk response. When we ask that question, we uncover the right reason or the actual reason, which is usually something along the lines of, I just don't know if it'll work, or I don't believe if I'll do the work. And then you get to put on your coach hat and work through that block that comes up for them. I guarantee, DM me when you use this, because I guarantee at over 70% of the time, the I need to think about it is uncovered to, I don't know if this will work, or I don't know if I'll do the work. I haven't been wrong yet, so keep me posted. The too expensive, right? It's like, we're not talking Louis Vuitton purses here. Like, what do you mean too expensive? You just bought the Louis Vuitton purse. I got the Gucci purse, right? I still say stuff's too expensive as I'm holding this freaking thing. Funny story, when I bought this, my bank said no. The money was there, but my bank still said no. So my friend had to use her credit card and I had to Venmo her. The horror in friggin' Beverly Hills. Yeah, so that was a nice humbling of me, right? When someone says something is too expensive, my favorite thing to say, okay, totally get that. What part is too expensive? Guarantee you're going to stop them in their tracks. They're going to be like, It's not too expensive. They just have another question they either don't know of yet or they're afraid to ask. Right? If there's a piece that's too expensive, right, when you think of like a total solution pack, all right, let's see if we can call their bluff a little bit. If there's a piece that's too expensive, I can absolutely share other options that don't include that expensive component. Can you tell me which one it is? Boom, right? This might be an opportunity, right? If it's really money that's keeping them hung up, you can downsell them to a bod. We have other options, but most of the time, anyone that says too expensive doesn't actually mean it. It uncovers to generally some variation of, I'm afraid it won't work. I'm afraid I won't do the work. We can coach them through both of those. I also, another way to say this that maybe isn't as challenging or as aggressive, right? Is price the only thing that's keeping you from getting started today? This is probably the one, because sometimes I'm a weenie and I get scared, I'll admit. This is the one I default to the most. Is price the only thing that's keeping you from jumping in today? Because, and you could even break this up into two parts, this one. Both of these are my favorites, right? Because if they're like, yes, Kayla, like I would literally, if it was, it's $200, if it was $150, I would buy it right now. Well, you probably have an option to get started. Again, call their bluff. Awesome. Well, we actually have an option where you can get started for $100. How does that sound? If they're still giving you a hard time, we might move to the bless and release, right? Because you don't have all day to screw around. It's like, are you serious about working with me or no, right? Another question I love to ask, a little bit of calling their bluff, a little bit of market research. Well, what would you expect to pay for a support group for 30 days? What would you expect to invest in that? And this is also a great way for them to actually realize that they're not investing in the stuff that comes in the box, right? They're investing in the outcome. So this is a great question that gets them centered on what actually matters, because what matters matters and what doesn't. I need to talk to my partner. This one still gets me tripped up sometimes, I'll be honest, because right, there are dynamics in partnerships that I don't understand or I can't relate to. I don't ask permission before I buy something. Like, I just don't. I make my own money. I got my own money. I make my own choices. Obviously, if it's a car, but again, I want my coffee, I want my Gucci, I buy it. But other people have different dynamics, and that's totally cool. So I get on the same level with them. I totally understand. And I would absolutely be doing the same if I were in your shoes, if that's accurate, right? You don't have to lie if that's not true for you. I know that when you talk to your husband, he likely will have questions. Is there a time that we can both chat about this, right? Again, this one is a great one. Again, it's a little bit of calling their bluff, because a lot of people that say I need to talk to my partner are actually not talking to their partner. It's a cop-out, right? It's just, or the talk with their partner is, hey, Bob, so I'm going to get started on this thing to lose weight. And he's going to say, well, what about the elliptical? And then she's going to be like, no, that sucks. And he'll be like, geez, okay, whatever, rolls his eyes. That's how that convo goes, right? Generally, for a lot of people. Another way that you can ask it is, does Bob know that working on your weight loss this year is really important to you? Let's see how much, if they really genuinely need to talk to their partner, right? Does their partner know that this actually matters to them? Because what happens if the partner doesn't know, and then you guys, get off of the DMs and Sally's going to go talk to Bob? All Bob is going to hear is Sally wants to spend X amount of money, and his gut reaction is going to say, well, spending that money is stupid, right? If Bob doesn't know if it's actually important to her, the conversation will not be a fruitful conversation. So I always love to coach people through this, especially when it comes to the business opportunity, right? Which is a long-term vision of, do they know how important this is to you? And then let's see how we can equip Sally with the talking points and things that she needs to actually have, right, an effective conversation with Bob about what matters to her and what's going on. And then giving space, right? I always say, if someone's kind of going back and forth, we're going to give them some space. We'll give them 24 hours, 48 hours, right? And I always love asking someone, hey, I know you want to take some time to think about this. Is 48 hours a good time to check in, right? It gives them space to trust themselves fully, because if they're feeling pressure, if they're feeling really pushed to make a decision on the spot, it's not always empowered. And I always tell people, and I'm sure you can agree, we don't want someone signing up just to buy something once and then disappear off the face of the earth. Doesn't help anybody. So sometimes giving space is the best way to help them make an empowered decision, especially after you've done the work in these scenarios to do some coaching to help them feel good about what they're deciding. So, right, let's just say they're at that point and they're like, I just don't know what to do. Do you ever hear that, where it's like they expect you to make a decision for them and you're just like, that's not what I do? This is what I say. Like, I'm not in the business of convincing. I trust in you to make the best decision for you. I know what's helped me in the past. I tell people to make a pro and con list. And I'll say, if the cons outweigh the pros, don't do it. If the pros outweigh the cons, I recommend you signing up to work with me. So that's kind of how I throw in some of my confidence. I use a lot of, when you work with me, language. When you sign up with me, that feels really good for me. Again, use some language that feels good for you. But my favorite line here is, I'm not in the business of convincing, because sometimes people will just say, what should I do? And right, it's really easy to kind of say, well, let me know, right? Because you don't want to be pushy. And this isn't pushy. It's, I'm not in the business of convincing. This is what I recommend. Boom. Are you ready to get started? Because oftentimes, right, someone on the other end just needs to know that someone believes in them just a little more than they believe in themselves. And that's usually enough for the right person. And then a powerful close, right? This is one of my favorites. This is like super juicy. Write this down. And of course, it's being recorded, so you'll have it, right? Let's just say, like, you're so close, like they're so excited to get started. Like, they're like, yeah, I want to go to that retreat with you. And we're going to do all this cool stuff. And I'm going to start this business, right? And then it comes to the point of actually signing up. And it's like, why am I facing resistance? And usually it's around, I just don't have the money right now. And it's like, but you were so excited and we were ready to go and we were future casting. Like, what's going on? I say, can I challenge you on this? I love asking for permission. Can I have permission to challenge you on this, especially around the topic of money, right? Because sometimes it's a little, so ask for permission. Can I challenge you? I've never had someone say no when I ask this question. And some people might call this like the Louis Vuitton-esque kind of close. You can insert anything here that matters to someone. Let's say you love cars, you love, shoes, insert whatever here. All right, so I know you said you're struggling to come up with the money. Well, let's just say, hypothetically, if I were to offer you a brand new Louis Vuitton purse that retails for $2,000 at $160, do you think you'd be able to get that money together today? Right? And they're gonna say, oh, well, of course, right? Insert something that's important to them. Make it relevant. Oh, of course, I could absolutely get the money together. Okay, well, can you give me some examples of how you would get the money together for that Louis Vuitton purse? How would you get the 160? And they'll say, well, I have some in my checking account, and I've got a little bit of cash from saved up in the dresser drawer. Okay, awesome. So you have a plan to get $160. Oh yeah, of course I do. Okay, so question, are you opposed to using that exact same plan that you gave me to get the Louis Vuitton purse to get started with the business for $160, right? It's one of those things where it's like, when you say this to someone, especially if you're face-to-face or on Zoom, you can see the light bulb go off where they're like, oh, it's like, do I value this decision? And do I value my health or starting this business? Insert whatever here as much as that Louis Vuitton purse, right? And they're like, yeah. So oftentimes people just need to kind of see a visual to have that light bulb moment to be like, I have the money, I can get it together. So this is one of my favorite things. Again, I've never had anyone go through this process and be like, well, no, I can't use that same plan of action, right? It's always like that aha moment of no, duh, if it's important to me and I want it, I'll do what I need to buy it. Because I said this during my free challenge this week, people buy what they want. We have to show them that they want it, right? And it's pretty easy to do when you have the right tools. But what do you do when you get ghosted? So annoying. Everyone's going to get ghosted all the time. You can be the best person in the world, have the most followers and the best product. You're still going to get ghosted. I have a 3-strike system that I like to use because, again, I'm not in the business of convincing. I'm also not in the business of chasing people. I got things to do. I got Vampire Diaries to binge watch. I don't have time for the shenanigans, right? It's so easy to get ghosted. But the nature of social media, right, is we're always getting distracted. We're bebopping from Instagram to TikTok to Facebook to email. We're all over the place. Your prospect's doing the same thing. How do we keep their attention? This process is going to help you determine, are they just distracted or are they just being game players? Because it's one of the two. It's strikes, which sounds like, again, super abrasive. It's really not. I just kind of like the description, right? So strike 1, right? You talk to them, you set up a time to follow up, or, you went through the whole process. They're so jazzed to sign up. And then you tell them it's $160 to get started. And now they saw your message and it's been 2 days and they haven't said anything. So this is my first approach. Make it work for you. Hey, Sally, wanted to check and see if you got my last message or if Instagram ate it, LOL. This is natural for me. I kind of like to do a little bit of the passive at first because generally they're going to say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I meant to reply. I've just been busy with my friend's cousin's dog, sister's lizard at the vet, all of their reasons. You continue the conversation when they respond from strike 1. But what if they see that message and they leave you on scene again? It's like, I'll give it another, 24 to 48 hours. This is where I'd like to put the coaching hat on during strike 2. I recommend taking a picture of this. I get that it's text heavy. I really like the structure of this, honestly. I oftentimes will do this in voice memo. Why? They can feel the sincerity in your voice, right? You're putting your coach hat on, right? And I put in the parentheses here, insert something about the people you've worked with. I put an example in here, but again, if you can bring a scenario of, another one of my coaches that got started just last week was feeling the same thing at first, but insert what she ended up doing, right? The beginning part, here's the gist. I understand there's fear coming up. One of my recent signups felt the exact same way. The final part is, my job as a coach is to guide you to work through this fear and make the best decision. And then, of course, ending with a question. Are you comfortable sharing more about what's coming up for you right now? Usually people will respond with what's actually going on, the true objection, which is usually, I'm afraid that this won't work, or I'm afraid that I won't do the work. And then you get to coach them through it. A lot of people really do, who are honestly wanting to do it, but just need someone to believe in them a little bit more than they do. They open up in strike two, right? The people that ghost you on strike two are essentially game players. Once we're entering strike three territory, like, we're ready to bless and release, see you later, alligator, right? So now we get to be bold, right? This is where we get to close the file, so to speak, in old school network marketing talk from back in my early days, right? All right, Sally, haven't heard from you yet. By this point, it's been about a week when we're sending this, right? Haven't heard from you yet. And I know that something either came up or you've just been kind of racking your brain to think of a way to let me down lately. Either way, it's totally fine. Can you just let me know which one it is? Again, a version of this with the same feel and the language that feels good for you. Like, if you could just let me know which one it is. Some people do a version of this, which is really funny, where it's like, back in the day, again, old school network marketing, you were taught to leave like a version of this on someone's voicemail when they would not answer the phone, and be like, something either happened, like, your dog ate, it's kind of like a dog ate your homework, right? You're trying to find a way to say, Kayla, I just don't want to work with you, and you haven't thought of it yet. Can you call me back and let me know, did I say something that offended you and you want to let me down lightly, or did you just lose your phone? Like something like kind of goofy and cheesy like that. It's kind of a little bit like bro type of talk, but it's kind of the same energy. We're just giving it a little modern feel, right? Something either came up, you've been really busy, or you just are trying to find a way to not hurt my feelings. I can promise you, no matter what you say, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Just let me know. Usually if someone is a good person and they were just trying to say no in a nice way, they'll respond and say no here. Awesome. Because we want a yes or a no. Or the person's probably, if they're being that much of a boob, they're going to ghost you again. At that point, it's like, see you later. I got things to do. When you come back to me in a month, I may or may not be busy. We'll see, right? This is the final strike. It's bold. You can kind of make it fun, add some personality into it, but I think it's important that you're direct. People have to know that like you've got stuff to do and you don't have time to screw around. So that's kind of the vibe of this one. And at that point, I don't follow up anymore. It's like, you either come back to me, usually people don't, and that's totally fine. It's their way of, just like in the dating world that I haven't been in over 12 years. It's just like, I'm just not that into you. And that's awesome because I'm not into you either, right? And I love the line about the Beachbody Witness Protection Program. I can't take credit for that. That is also from a consultant that Beachbody hired back in my early days, MJ Durkin. He's a friend of mine. He's a real MVP. And that's what he used to say about ghosting. Well, what they called it back in the day was something else, right? But they disappear into the Beachbody Witness Protection Program and you never see them again. It's like, where'd you go? I don't know. They like drop off from Instagram. It's like, did you leave? Did you abandon your Instagram because of me? I hope not. Geez, but you see that? It's so funny sometimes. But we bless and release, y'all. La da da da. Ooh, Jen. I like this one. In the chance you happen to bump into the person that's been ghosting you, honestly, like I just crack a joke. Sally, I thought you were trying to avoid me. Again, that's like what I would do. Probably after a couple cocktails, though, to be honest with you. If I was completely no fun substances of any kind, I would probably just, hey, how are you? How have you been? Oh, either works. You could also just ignore them. You could go hide behind a bush or something. All of those options I think are totally fine. But honestly, it's awkward if you make it awkward, right? Like you get to choose to either make it awkward or don't. That's kind of my thoughts on that. But that's a great question. I will admit, I don't think I've ever run into anyone that I've like prospected out and about, or at least not recent enough where like it's fresh enough to remember, you know what I'm saying? So the likelihood of that, I mean, if you live in a small town, maybe, but the likelihood of that coming up probably isn't too common. But honestly, I'm sure they would also rather pretend maybe it didn't happen. And so take the road that feels best for you. But if inviting and this topic is something that you've been loving, nothing I talked about today was really covered at all. in my free challenge that I did this week. So if you join this Facebook group, you can go ahead and watch the 3 days of videos, y'all. I highly recommend. Really, really good information, especially day 3. I gave like an entire like invite, like checklist structure to kind of guide you on how to go from talking to someone to the close. So that's in my Facebook group. The videos are going to be up all week. I highly, highly recommend that. There's the Facebook group. You could just search it. It's super easy. You'll see this picture at the top. That's how you'll know you're in the right place. And then Courtney mentioned it also. I'm doing an event with my amazing co-host, Carrie Veracchio, on the Wednesday, like before Summit like really officially starts. So if you're going to be in St. Louis, or if you haven't booked your flight and you're like, now I have an awesome reason to, would love to see you. It's going to be an awesome day of workshop and interactive style. It's not just sit and take notes. We've got lunch for the day. We have really awesome speakers, including McCall Jones, who's a video sales expert, Colleen Nichols, who is the founder of the No Shame Sales Game Instagram page, and then of course, Chris Downing. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be like 1 mile, I think, from where all the festivities are happening. So super easily accessible to get to, and I would love to see you there. It's going to be fun. And I'm going to post the link on my stories so you guys can check it out as well. Tickets are super duper cheap too. So win-win, but we're still doing good, Courtney, right for time for questions, like pretty much right on the time money. So if people want to unmute, post in the chat,
Kayla, that was
whatever you're
amazing.
thinking.
You always come with all of the value and all of the nuggets. I was just messaging Courtney. I'm like, I don't have a question. She gave it all to us. Like,
thanks, Erin.
I just love how real you are and how you are so bold and blatant. Like, it's awesome. I will say I'm not as bold as you. Like, some of the responses to your objections, I was like this, like, I don't know if I can do it, right? But I love how real you are. And I think the strategy on ghosting alone is really powerful, and I think will really empower a lot of our coaches to know what to do. Because I get that question. I feel like Jen and I were even just talking about that yesterday or today, like, what do you do when people ghost? Like, what's the plan? So at least now having kind of a plan of like being light, making it more heart to heart, and then being bold, like even just having that structure alone helps me to guide me with my own, not as bold terminologies, but a way to kind of guide the ghosting. So I so appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, Jen's got one in the chat, which is a nice, vague and open-ended one. So I'll see if I can be precise for you. How do you prospect new potential clients? The easiest way I'm going to describe this, because honestly, we could probably talk until midnight about this topic if you gave me the chance. I love to connect with people based on things that I enjoy talking about, right? And the biggest thing we got to do is get out of the health and wellness bubble, because all you're going to find is people doing the same thing, and you're going to spend more time sorting than you do actually talking to anybody. My favorite example that I love to give is Vampire Diaries. Like, I go to the conventions now, like I get to like do fun stuff. And honestly, the connections I've made that have been able to benefit, not just things in business, but things outside is amazing. So what do you enjoy outside of your work? Talk to people about it, make connections, because what you do comes up naturally. Like, we're just humans. Talking about what we do is just part of how we get to know people. So that is my best kind of open-ended, but still specific way to get to know people and essentially prospect. I generally don't say that too much. I just like to say like building relationships, because that's what it is. When you build a relationship, and you don't even realize you're doing this, when you build a relationship with someone that you're bringing into the business, it's the exact same way you build a relationship with friends, with partners. Just some friendships just have some extra activities that others don't. You know what I'm saying? But it really is the same thing. You're getting to know people. You either vibe with them or you don't. Any tips for re-engaging with someone that's been a while and the convo has fizzled? Like, honestly, two ways. You can either bring something up again if it's relevant. Like, let's say, random example. I was talking to someone about hashtags, and I found an article about hashtags that made me think of them. I'll be like, hey, I found this article, it made me think of you. How's everything been going with business? So that would be like something I would do. Or on the flip side, you could just start over like you didn't have a previous convo and treat it like that. I think both approaches work really well. Find something new to talk about. Treat it like it's brand new.
I have a question.
Hello, Marianne. How are
Hi.
you?
Good, how are you? Okay, my question is, what if you are having a conversation with someone, like it is someone I already have a relationship with, and I bring it up, and then they just ignore it and we continue talking about something else? Do I consider that as a ghosting and just like leave it? Because she just will literally ignore that message and then just like comment on something on my story with my kid. And I'm like,
Ooh, such
okay.
a good one. Absolutely. Honestly, I would probably go in with the, hey, did you see my message up there? I know it might have gotten hidden. So that's kind of something that I would say. So whatever feels good for you. Again, it's like, I know it's easy to beat around the bush. Like I'm one of those people sometimes where like, I'm like, oh, this is kind of uncomfortable. But sometimes we got to just like call it out. And that's how we break through that discomfort. Hey, did you see that message up there? Right? Because now you're the one in the driver's seat, right? You take that power back when you kind of call it out.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. Yes. Anything else, guys?
Hey, I've got a question for you, just based on the last one. If you're actually having a conversation live in person, and
Oop, I think you muted yourself, Monica. Sorry. Oop,
okay,
can you say it again?
yep. So I'm just wondering how you would handle that situation in a live conversation, because it's happened to me
Ooh.
where, you know, it fits in naturally, you bring it up, and the person's like, yeah, so, and then it go right back to a different topic, right? Like just
That's such a good one. And I will
fly
admit,
by plane.
I haven't really had that come up in business, but honestly, I would almost treat it similar to how you naturally would if you were talking about something that wasn't business related. Like, you know how sometimes like you're talking to your partner and you're like talking about a few things and they answer everything but the one. And it's like, listen, like, so if it's natural for you to be like, hey, like I'd ask it again.
Okay.
Or if you're just really getting the vibe that the person just isn't ready to talk about it, I would maybe continue on the path they redirected and then look for an opportunity to come back to maybe try one more time. And then at that point, I would kind of put it to bed and maybe try again at another time. Because, right, remember, health and wellness, sometimes, especially in person, it might be a little bit difficult for someone to open up and it might just need a little bit more time.
Super, thanks.
Absolutely.
I think one of the most valuable things that you gave to me tonight was even talking about when you talk about reading the room. Like, have they been excited about this conversation? Have they been forthcoming? Have they been giving you full sentences? Or has it been like one-word answers? In your gut, you know if somebody's kind of sort of interested or if this is like a hard no and they're just trying to be kind, right? Like, I think if we actually look through the conversation, you know whether it's right to be that they need the push and it's right to be that coach for them, or it's just not the right time and you planted that seed and you continue on and you can connect with them ongoingly and maybe next month or 6 months from now is right for them, right? But I think you even just like articulating those signs to look at reading the room, like, are they excited? Have they been forthcoming? Have they been one word answers? Like, great tips.
Absolutely. I'm so glad. Marianne asked, for people who follow you but don't necessarily fit as your people, I think there are many reasons someone could be your person. I don't think it's like a list where they have to check all the boxes, right? There's some that might check 2, some that might check 4. But again, I always look at it this way. Anyone in your community, whether they've bought or not, like has value. And because some of your most loyal evangelists who are shouting your names on the rooftops from social, who might bring in a referral, who might allow Instagram to see there's engagement on your posts and let it spread further. Like, all of it has value. And so treating people equally the same really, really helps, because sometimes someone we might not think is our person might really surprise us. So it's like, you go into it cautiously, but stay open-minded. And just honestly, I treat it like your social media following is like a dinner party, and you're going around, you're the hostess, you're checking in, doing the thing, allowing people to feel like they have a place and they have a home within the community that you're building. And it does pay off.
Can I clarify that? Because it maybe didn't totally make sense. I'm like still trying to grow. I'm very like low followers. I'm like slowly building.
Mhm.
And I had a like random reel go like crazy viral, like 3 million people.
Ooh,
And
congrats. That's fun.
I had like a whole bunch of followers, but like that I feel like I didn't understand why they were following me, and it seemed like a lot of people. So I was like, do I just leave that because I'm trying to grow and just let it be, even if not necessarily, like, I honestly was like, I don't know why all these people are following me. They don't seem to fit with any of the things that I talk about and do in my life.
That's such a good one. That's such a good one. And honestly, like when you go viral, and I don't talk about like trying to go viral or things as much for exactly the reason you mentioned, I wouldn't let it change really what you're doing. Like there's some people there who are just kind of there. I wouldn't let it eat up too much energy because I know it's easy to get focused into like, well, let me weed through and let me like hyper analyze all of these people. But your time is so much more valuable than that. I would just take going viral as a, oh, that's cool. Good for me.
Okay.
And continue on with the activities that matter. And there's probably some awesome people within that collection of new faces. And I trust that when you focus on showing up for the people that you want, those faces will make themselves known to you in due time.
Okay, thank you.
Heck, I was reading the chat. Kelly ran to someone who I thought just shit at me. She hugged me and told me how inspiring I was. Yes, it's true. People watch. People are nice, like little silent story stalkers. I love them. You know, you never know. It's true. You never know. And it's cool to get a response like that.
Well, thank you so much for your time tonight, Kayla. We appreciate you, your insight, your expertise, your knowledge, and your candor and bold and all of your recommendations. Like, we appreciate you so much. So remind us if we want to go to your event pre-summit, where can we find that information?
Yes. Here, I'll even just grab it and toss it in the chat. I'll also put it over on Instagram. Let me just close out of these. I have too many windows open. Story of my life.
My favorite part was strike two. I think that is such a good example. Like, I hear fear coming up. A lot of people that enrolled with me recently felt that. Like, I really love that example. And it really, like, even just for me in my conversations, I feel like empowers me to like confront them and keep the conversation going in a positive, like, I'm a coach way, you know? So that was really cool.
And it really lets people know that like they get to experience how you coaching them, like what that looks like before they even sign up. And that's really powerful. They know what to expect. And that's how you also are like really bringing in people who get to see how you brought them in. So if they're coming into the business, they've gotten to witness that, and now they get to duplicate and do the same thing, which is really powerful.
And I think that the boldness in a lot of your wording really aligns with being a coach, guys. Like, we're here to coach people through their health and wellness. So you can't be meek, because if they join you and they never show up and they don't do anything, are you going to coach them through that? So leading by example, just in this early process of like, listen, I'm a coach. I'm here to hold you accountable. Like, let's talk about how you're going to get there. If not this, it's powerful. It's good.
Awesome, guys. And if anything comes up, any other questions, Facebook group. And then of course I'm always on Instagram in one way or another, hanging out. So I'm here for you guys.
Thanks again, Kayla.
It's an exciting season, and I'm so excited to see so many faces. I'll be in St. Louis all week, so I'll be all over the place. We'll get to hang out, chat, and get excited about what's coming.
See you soon.
Have a good one, guys.